You have successfully launched and raised capital from ultra high net worth investors in Canada for 4 funds now. Was capital raising from family offices and ultra high net worth investors a concern for you when you actually started these funds?
Yeah, I honestly, I didn't know how it would turn out. I knew that I'd have a loyal 10 or 15 investors, but I didn't know how much money we could raise. And of course, if you want to deal with the larger players, you need to raise a fair amount of money because they don't tend to do small transactions. What I found out, fortunately, was that a lot more people knew about us than I realized. And it was because we had 600 shareholders of Atrium. Today, it's about 3,500 shareholders of Atrium. And they saw that we run a pretty conservative, disciplined operation. And so they were comfortable also investing with us in the equity side. We also, in fairness, had a couple of fundraisers, including yourself, getting our story out.
With COVID happening right now, are you communicating with investors regularly, and do you make yourself available for them personally? I would imagine that you might be getting more calls right now with COVID and some of their concerns about their holdings. Could you speak to that?
In late April, early May, we had a conference call and we'd sent out a PowerPoint a day earlier for each one of the 4 funds, because of course investors aren't necessarily in all 4 of them. And we went through the details of each deal and emphasized the quality of our developer partners and emphasized that we're if anything under leveraged on these investments. We very rarely borrow more than 50% against land, and inevitably, because of the quality of our developers, that financing is provided by one of the big 6 banks. So we wanted to assure them, and we really got good feedback that their investments weren't in trouble, that we're dealing with developers who can get financing in any economic environment. And yes, there could be a delay in the progress of the development depending on how serious COVID would become, but that ultimately they would have a profitable investment. So the number of calls today is actually few and far between.
Oh, that's good. So, you're not getting inundated with worried investors. They have put their trust in you and obviously are getting the right amount of information from you and your team.
Yeah, well, as you know, we provide a quarterly update on each of the funds, and on the last 2 funds, which have the most investments still outstanding. Those reports are at least 20 pages long. So it provides a lot of information. So a developer or an investor might call us up about one particular transaction and just be intrigued to learn more about it. But there's a lot of information that we provide every quarter.
Yeah, which is just so important, that kind of transparency. So Rob, with the current environment, are there plans to launch Fund 5? I think you were ready to go with Fund 5 and then COVID happened and that went on hold. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, we were ready, as you mentioned, to launch in February or March. Then COVID hit and we thought it would be prudent to put Fund 5 on hold. We're eager to move forward with it, but only when the environment is right. I'd personally rather, and the clients that we built relationships with would rather purchase land attractively and not, for instance, purchase into a distress scenario, but start clean with a new transaction at a land cost, or in the case of an industrial building, at a building cost that's very attractive and will protect the downside, which is what we always look at more than an